everybody. Welcome to Daily Dictation. This is an interactive video to help you practice your English skills. You will be learning how to expand your grammar, you'll practice your writing, and you'll practice your listening. I am going to read 5 sentences about the topic of crime at a high intermediate level. After I read these sentences, you will write down each sentence to the best of your ability by applying the best spelling and grammar that you can. After, I will show you what each sentence looks like as it is written correctly, and you will learn some spelling tips and tricks, and you will get grammar explanations for each sentence so you can learn how to write English better and how to improve your listening skills. Let's get started. This is a skill that is best developed if you practice every day. So there are new videos from Monday to Friday with new sentences each weekday and new topics each week with 2 English levels offered. The instructions for this activity: you will need a blank piece of paper and a pencil. 5 sentences will be read. Each sentence will be read 3 times and 1 more time at the end. You have to write down each sentence exactly as you hear it, and you will use your listening skills to do this. Try your best to apply the correct spelling, punctuation, and capitalization for each sentence. You are going to see numbers 1 to 5 on the screen. Each number will represent a different sentence that will be read. I'm going to start with sentence number 1. Number 1. The witness gave evidence about the robbery in court. The witness gave evidence about the robbery in court. The witness gave evidence about the robbery in court. Number 2. As the trial progressed, the victim of the assault testified. As the trial progressed, the victim of the assault testified. As the trial progressed, the victim of the assault testified. Number 3. The judge decided the penalty for vandalism would include a fine. The judge decided the penalty for vandalism would include a fine. The judge decided the penalty for vandalism would include a fine. Number 4. After the suspect was found guilty, the sentence was announced. After the suspect was found guilty, the sentence was announced. After the suspect was found guilty, the sentence was announced. Number 5. The police collected evidence from the crime scene. The police collected evidence from the crime scene. The police collected evidence from the crime scene. I'm going to read each sentence one more time, starting with sentence number 1. The witness gave evidence about the robbery in court. Number 2. As the trial progressed, the victim of the assault testified. Number 3. The judge decided the penalty for vandalism would include a fine. Number 4. After the suspect was found guilty, the sentence was announced. Number 5. The police collected evidence from the crime scene. All right, so those are all of our sentences for today with this topic. Let's have a look at what each sentence looks like. If you found that this video is a little bit too fast, I recommend that you listen again and adjust the playback speed to make it go slower. If you need to listen to specific sentence numbers again, just check the description for timestamps. Let's look at each sentence, starting with sentence number 1. The witness gave evidence about the robbery in court. So in this case, if we're looking at this sentence, the witness is our subject. Gave is our verb in simple past. It is an irregular verb. Evidence is the object. And then we have more information. We have this preposition about to tell us what the evidence was regarding. And so we are linking this noun, robbery, to this noun, evidence. Then we have another preposition. Now we have a preposition in place, in, to link this noun, court, to these two nouns before that. And so we use the preposition in place, and court here is a noun. For spelling, we have a couple of words here with double consonants. Witness has a double consonant at the end that can be tricky sometimes. I usually like to split up this word, wit and ness, because ness is a really common suffix that we have at the end of many words. Evidence can be hard as well. Evidence, you can split it up into these 3 parts to kind of help yourself remember the letter order. Robbery, robbery. This is another double consonant, so I like to split them up, splitting the B's up to make sure that nothing is forgotten, because it's hard to know these double consonants just as you hear it. You have to really memorize those double consonants and where they're placed. Let's look at number 2. As the trial progressed, the victim of the assault testified. Now, we are starting with a subordinating conjunction as, which tells us that we're starting with a dependent clause. And after the dependent clause, we will put a comma before the independent clause starts, which is here. So we have subordinating conjunction. So this is a dependent clause. I'll write that up here. And up here is an independent clause. And so because we have dependent first and independent second, we do need that comma here. The victim here is subject. And then we have a verb here. We have more information about who the victim is, which is quite necessary for this context. So we have the preposition of to help us tell us more information about and kind of link the relationship to explain the relationship between this noun victim and this noun assault. Some tricky words. Progressed could be tricky just because of the double consonant. So progress, split it up into 3 to help you remember. Victim, I find this one hard because a lot of people will like to write it as they hear it, and a lot of people hear a U here. So remember that there are 2 I's, victim, not victim, even though we do pronounce it like it is a U in some regions. You want to try to remember that it is an I, there's no U. And assault, as salt. Like this is like same spelling as table salt and as. So if you split it up like this, it might be harder to remember because again, here we have double consonants. And testified, test, if, I'd. Split it up like this to remember the letter order. Number 3, the judge decided the penalty for vandalism would include a fine. The judge is the subject of the sentence. Decided is the main verb here. The penalty is the thing that was being decided on, so that's the object of the sentence, but we do have more prepositions to show relationships again. So we have the word for, which is a preposition. And so we're showing the relationship between this noun vandalism and this noun penalty. So the word for does that. Then we have a modal would. And then a main verb include a fine, which is here a noun, a sum of money that you need to pay as a punishment. Number 4, after the suspect was found guilty, the sentence was announced. Similar to number 2, we are again starting with a subordinating conjunction after, and that's our first word in the sentence, which immediately tells us that we're starting with a dependent clause. So when that clause is finished, we're going to put a comma at the end, which is why this is here. And we have the sentence was announced. So here we have a subject, verb, and adjective. So we have a complete form to show us that this part here is the independent clause. So we know right before the independent clause starts, we do need a comma to signal the end of the dependent clause. Announce could be a tricky word. There are a lot of N's. So N, noun. Remember this as kind of noun, like person, place, or thing. That's how that's spelled. And then CED at the end. The reason why I split this up like this is so you remember this N here, and you can split up this double consonant N and remember both of them. But also because this N is hard to catch. Some people will write announced and not put that N here because it's not very clear when we say it out loud. For number 5, the police collected evidence from the crime scene. So the police is the subject of this sentence. Collected is the main verb in simple past, and evidence is the object. Again, like we said in sentence number 1, split it up. Evidence, like that for spelling. Split it up into these smaller parts. From, so we're using this preposition to show us the relationship between the noun crime scene and the noun evidence. And that just makes our sentence a little bit longer and more complex. Remember when you're spelling crime scene, there's S, but there's also CE after that. And so oftentimes people will forget the C or want to put it over here because you can remember there's a C in there, but you can't remember where it is. So it's SCE at the beginning. So you really have to remember that. It's a little bit tricky. Besides that, these are all of the sentences for today. So we've explained some of the grammar, some of the structure that we see, and some of the spelling tips and tricks. These are the words related to crime that we're studying this week. Let me show you a better list of these words. We have the words robbery, victim, vandalism, assault, witness, evidence, trial, penalty, and sentence. These are really good words to know related to this topic. It is a common topic to come up. It is good to discuss in the speaking. If somebody's asking you where you're from and you bring up that you're from a big city, then the topic of crime could follow from that. So if you show that you know these words, then it shows that you have a very good range of vocabulary, which is important for proficiency exams. And sometimes they might even come up in the listening portions or even in the writing portions. So you really do want to be comfortable spelling and using these words. Besides that, we are all finished for today. Thank you so much for listening and keep on practicing your English. I'll see you next time. Bye.